Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's a cold day here in Minnesota. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be going over my top 3 lures that I use for smallmouth bass. Besides that, I'm going to be also telling you guys the 2 lures that I plan on trying to get better at this year. So stay tuned. All right, starting off my top 3 is a jerkbait for smallmouth bass. This is a killer. This happens to be the Mega Bass Vision 110. Some people say this might be a little too large for smallmouth, but I love it because it weeds out all the little dinks. And when you hook up on a big one, you get a big one. Some say that these hooks might be a little bit too easy to bend, but at the end of the day, I believe it's all about what gear you're using. If you plan on power fishing with heavy line, heavy reel and a heavy rod, of course, obviously that's gonna bend the hooks out. But if you use the appropriate gear for the job, I've caught probably over 50 to 75 bass on this, and the hooks are still the stock hooks, so I haven't changed it. So when you're fishing these, especially the Mega Bass, you want to make sure that you're using the correct gear so that the hooks don't get bent out. Otherwise, feel free to change up the hooks if you feel like it. There are plenty of resources online like Tactical Bassin. They've shown you which hooks or which split rings that you can use to swap out so it doesn't bend that easily. And you can definitely get really good smallmouth with this. All right, number 2 on the list is the Ned rig. So what I got here that I personally use is a Ned head with Helgramite. So this is the exact rig that I use to catch my PB smallmouth. Now you can basically use any of the Ned lures now. There's so many available that's on the market. Can't go wrong with any of them, especially with the Z-Man TRDs that can be super stretchy. And these ones too. This is the Nico brand ones. So these are very elastic. They use the same technology as Z-Man with the little Aztec style. And so it does stretch quite a bit. But yeah, especially on very hard days to catch fish, when their fish are really finicky, this is the lure that I use to catch as many bass as I can. Of course, with the Ned rig, you'll be catching dinks all the way up into the big bass. And so, make sure that this is in your tackle box if you're going to be shooting for a smallmouth bass. All right, last but not least, the number 1 lure that I use for smallmouth is the Whopper Plopper by River to Sea. Of course, you can use any of the other ones like the Berkeley Chapo, but everybody loves the top water bite. You can use a popper or a frog or anything else for smallmouth, but the number 1 that I love using is the Whopper Plopper. Especially on really windy days or calm days, anytime when the bass are aggressive, they'll bite this no matter what. And obviously, of course, you'll get the stray pikes or stray largemouth or anything on the river that'll also take this too. But my number 1 lure, this is the one that I love fishing with the most. All right, that was the top 3 for the best lures that I use for smallmouth bass. Continuing on, we're going to be looking at 2 lures or 2 styles that I really want to get better at this year. All right, one of the few techniques that I really want to try to improve upon this year is the drop shot. I got a little leech lure here and a little weight, but I haven't tried that technique all that much, and I haven't had much luck using that technique. So starting this year, I'm going to try, obviously we're in Minnesota, lakes are frozen, but once the water thaws and the bass start getting active in the spring, of course, I really want to try to hone my technique with the drop shot, and hopefully that can get me a new PB for all I know. A lot of people have fished using that technique and have had great success, so it might just be me. I've tried it, I haven't had much luck, but this year for sure, I'm going to try using the drop shot and see if it can get me anything big this year. All right, one of the next lures that I really want to try this year to get more familiar with is the Dark Sleeper by Mega Bass. A lot of people have this as their staple lure for smallmouth bass, but for me, I actually haven't had much luck with it. And so when I go out this spring for smallmouth on the river, I will definitely throw more of this. Hopefully that can land me a few big fish. Obviously, a lot of people throw big swim baits as well for smallmouth bass, but this is one of the staple swim baits that people throw. So I'm going to dedicate a little bit more time this year and hopefully can catch me a big one. All right, so moving on to gear. I love throwing my Hellgrammite Ned rig on the Aldebaran BFS. And I got this with the Dobbin Sierra Ultra Finesse rod. This is my go-to. I can cast this Ned rig a mile. I've also caught a giant 20-pound carp with this rod and reel combo with no issues on this same Hellgrammite here. And so this is what I use. I have here 8-pound line. I believe it's the Berkley X9, 8-pound line. And I got a fluorocarbon leader on this thing. And this rod is a beast. I love fishing Ned rig on this rod and reel combo here. So if anything, if you don't want to use a spinning rod or anything for Ned rig, this is obviously a nice alternative that you can use. And of course, with the drop shot that I'm trying to get better at this year, I'll be throwing it also on this rod as well. So stay tuned this year for more videos on smallmouth and hopefully catch a big one on this thing with drop shot. All right, so moving on to the next gear, I have the St. Croix Avid X with a Daiwa Zillion. This is the medium extra fast. Of course, this is for my jerk baits, and I obviously use it for my whopper plopper as well. This is a very versatile rod that I use. The Zillion is pretty overkill. It's a beef heft of a reel. What I got tied on is 20-pound Suffix 832. I don't have a leader, but when I do use the whopper plopper, I'll probably tie on a swivel just so that I avoid a little line twist and all that. And then for jerk baits, I'll probably tie on a 3.5 foot leader of fluorocarbon, so to avoid the braid from keeping the jerk bait up in the water column. So this is one of my go-tos. Obviously, if I'm throwing the Megabass Dart Sleeper, I probably might have to step down to a 1/2 ounce size. Otherwise, I'll have to use a different rod and reel combo. Of course, when you're on the river, you don't want to bring too many rods and reels with you. It becomes really cumbersome. I usually just take one little small bag with me, but these are my 2 rod and reel combos that I will be using out on the river this year once the water thaws. Man, let me know in the comments below what you guys use for smallmouth bass. All right, that's it for the video, guys. That was my top 3 lures that I use for smallmouth bass and a couple of things that I would like to try to improve on this year. If you guys have any more ideas or anything else you guys want to question on, please feel free to put that into the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.